What happens when one of the most talked about women in the world walks onto a daytime talk show stage and decides that respect is optional? In just 36 seconds, a single comment would turn a routine interview into the most explosive television moment of the year. The studio lights were blazing hot that morning. The audience was packed in tight, every seat filled with people who had been waiting for weeks to see this. Joy Behar sat at the table, shuffling her notes, glancing at the entrance. The energy in the room was electric. Everyone knew this was going to be big. The producers had been hyping this interview for days. Social media was buzzing. The ratings were expected to go through the roof. Then she walked out. Meghan Markle entered the stage with her head held high, waving to the crowd like she owned the place. The audience erupted. People were on their feet, clapping, screaming her name. She smiled that famous smile, the one that had been on magazine covers around the world. She took her seat across from Joy, crossing her legs, settling in like she was ready for a casual chat with an old friend. Joy leaned forward, her smile warm and welcoming. "Thank you so much for being here. We are thrilled to have you." Meghan nodded, barely looking at her. "Thanks for having me." Right from the start, something felt off. Joy tried to break the ice, asking about her recent projects, her life, the things people wanted to know. But Meghan's answers were short, clipped, like she had somewhere better to be. The audience started to shift in their seats. You could feel the tension building. Joy pressed on, professional as always. "You've been very vocal about your experiences. A lot of people have connected with your story, but some people have also criticized the way you've handled certain situations. How do you respond to that?" Meghan's eyes narrowed. She tilted her head, looking at Joy like she had just said something deeply offensive. Criticized? By who? People who have never walked a day in my shoes? People who sit behind screens and judge without knowing anything? Joy kept her composure. "Well, I think what some people are saying is that there's a way to address issues without what?" Meghan cut her off. "Without making people uncomfortable? That's the problem, isn't it? People don't want to hear the truth. They want me to smile and stay quiet and play the role they've decided I should play." The audience was dead silent now. You could hear every breath, every small movement. Joy's co-hosts exchanged glances. This was not going the way anyone expected. Joy tried to steer things back. "I don't think anyone wants you to stay quiet. I think people just want to understand your perspective. That's why we invited you here, to have a conversation." "A conversation?" Meghan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This isn't a conversation. This is an interrogation. You sit there with your questions, trying to trap me, trying to make me look bad." Joy's smile faded. "That's not what this is. We ask tough questions of everyone who sits in that chair. It's our job." "Your job is to tear people down," Meghan shot back. "That's what you do here, isn't it? You invite people on, act all friendly, and then you go for the throat. Well, I'm not going to sit here and let you do that to me." The audience gasped. Some people looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable. Joy straightened in her chair, her professional mask starting to crack. "I have to stop you right there. That is not what we do. We have respectful conversations with our guests." "But respect goes both ways," Meghan scoffed. "Respect? You want to talk about respect? Where was the respect when your show spent weeks talking about me behind my back? Where was the respect when you made jokes at my expense?" Joy's voice got firmer. "We comment on public figures. That's what this show is. If you put yourself in the public eye, you have to expect that people will have opinions. But coming here and attacking me personally is not okay." "Attacking you?" Meghan's voice rose. "You think this is an attack? This is me standing up for myself. Something I should have done a long time ago instead of sitting back and letting people like you control the narrative." One of the co-hosts tried to jump in, tried to calm things down. "Maybe we can take a breath here and—" "No," Meghan snapped, turning to her. "I'm tired of taking breaths. I'm tired of being told to calm down. I'm tired of being painted as the villain when all I've ever done is speak my truth." Joy leaned forward, her patience clearly wearing thin. "Your truth is not the only truth. Other people have their perspectives too. Your family has their side of the story. The institution has their side. We've had people on this show who have shared very different accounts of what happened." "Of course they have," Meghan said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "because they're so trustworthy. They've never lied. They've never manipulated the media. It's just me, right? I'm the problem." Joy took a deep breath. "I never said you were the problem. But I am saying that you need to take responsibility for your part in all of this. Nobody is perfect. Nobody handles everything correctly. But sitting here and acting like you're above criticism is not going to win you any supporters. That was the moment everything changed. Meghan's face went red. Her eyes blazed with anger. She uncrossed her legs and leaned forward, pointing her finger at Joy. You have no idea what I've been through. No idea. You sit here in your comfortable little studio with your comfortable little life, and you judge me. You have never had to deal with what I've dealt with. You have never had the entire world against you. Joy's voice was steady but hard. Actually, I have dealt with plenty. I've been in this business for decades. I've been attacked, criticized, threatened, but I don't use that as an excuse to be rude to people who are just doing their job. Meghan stood up. The sudden movement made everyone in the studio jump. The camera zoomed in, capturing every second. I'm not being rude. I'm being honest. And if you can't handle honesty, then maybe you shouldn't be hosting a talk show. Joy stood up too, facing her across the table. You know what? I've had enough. I have interviewed hundreds of people. Some I agree with, some I don't. But every single one of them showed up with a basic level of respect. You walked in here with an attitude from the moment you sat down. You've been condescending, you've been defensive, and now you're being outright hostile. Hostile? Meghan's voice was shaking now. You want to see hostile? Hostile is what I've dealt with for years. This is nothing. This is me finally saying what needs to be said. Joy shook her head. No. This is you throwing a tantrum because someone asked you a question you didn't like. This is you showing everyone exactly who you really are. The audience was frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody made a sound. This was television history unfolding in real time. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside her chair. I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to sit here and be insulted by someone who clearly had an agenda from the start. Joy crossed her arms. The only agenda here was to have an honest conversation. But you're right. You don't have to sit here. In fact, I think it's better if you don't. Meghan's mouth dropped open. Excuse me? You heard me, Joy said, her voice calm but firm. This interview is over. We don't tolerate guests who come here and disrespect our hosts, our show, or our audience. You need to leave. For a moment, Meghan just stood there, stunned. She looked around the studio like she was waiting for someone to tell her this was a joke. But Joy didn't move. She didn't back down. She just stood there, waiting. Meghan's face went through about 10 different emotions in 5 seconds. Shock, anger, disbelief, embarrassment. She clutched her purse tighter. This is unbelievable. You're actually kicking me off? Yes, Joy said simply. I am. Do you have any idea who I am? Meghan's voice was almost shrill now. Joy didn't blink. I know exactly who you are. And right now, you're someone who needs to leave my stage. Meghan looked at the audience, like she was expecting them to support her, to stand up and defend her. But they just stared back, silent and shocked. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked uncomfortable. A few were already pulling out their phones, trying to record what they could. This is ridiculous, Meghan said, her voice shaking. This is absolutely ridiculous. You invite me here, you attack me, and then you throw me out when I defend myself? Joy's co-host spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. Nobody attacked you. We asked you normal interview questions. You're the one who came in aggressive. Meghan whipped around to face her. Oh, so now you're all ganging up on me? Is that what this is? Joy raised her hand. Stop. Just stop. This isn't productive. You need to go. Security will show you out if you need help finding the exit. That was it. That was the final straw. Meghan's whole body tensed up. She opened her mouth like she was about to say something, probably something she would regret, but then she seemed to think better of it. She turned on her heel and started walking toward the exit, but she couldn't leave without getting the last word in. She stopped at the edge of the stage, turned back around, and pointed at Joy. You're going to regret this. Everyone is going to hear about what happened here today. Everyone is going to know how you treated me. Joy didn't flinch. I'm sure they will. And they'll see exactly what happened. The cameras caught everything. Meghan's face went pale. For just a second, you could see the realization hit her. The cameras had been rolling the entire axis. Time. Every word, every gesture, every outburst had been recorded. There was no way to spin this, no way to control the narrative. It was all right there on tape. She turned around one more time and walked off the stage. Her heels clicked loudly on the floor. The door slammed behind her. And just like that, she was gone. The studio was silent for what felt like forever. Joy slowly sat back down, taking a deep breath. Her co-hosts looked at each other, clearly trying to process what had just happened. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay quiet. A few people whispered to each other, but most just sat there in shock. Joy finally spoke, her voice a little shaky but strong. Well, that was unexpected. The audience let out a nervous laugh. The tension broke just a little bit. One of the co-hosts leaned over. "Are you okay?" Joy nodded. "I'm fine. I've never had to do that before. In all my years, I've never had to ask a guest to leave." Another co-host chimed. "You handled it perfectly. You gave her so many chances to just have a normal conversation. She chose to make it ugly." Joy looked directly at the camera. "I want to say something to everyone watching. We invited our guest here in good faith. We wanted to hear from her. We wanted to give her a platform to share her side of things. But we will not tolerate disrespect. Not to me, not to my co-hosts, and not to our audience. We believe in tough questions. We believe in honest conversations. But we also believe in basic human decency." The audience started to clap, slowly at first, then louder and louder, until the whole studio was applauding. Joy smiled, a real smile this time, and nodded her thanks. The show went to commercial break. Behind the scenes, the producers were scrambling. Phones were ringing off the hook. Social media was exploding. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation were everywhere. People were picking sides, sharing their opinions, dissecting every word that was said. When the show came back from commercial, Joy addressed what happened one more time. "I know everyone is going to have opinions about what just happened. That's okay. That's what we do here. We talk about things. We have different perspectives. But I want to be clear about something. I don't take pleasure in what happened. I didn't want it to go that way. I truly wanted to have a good conversation." Her co-host nodded. "But sometimes people show you who they are, and when they do, you have to believe them." Joy agreed. "Exactly. We can't control how other people behave. We can only control how we respond. And I chose to respond by standing up for myself and for this show." The rest of the episode was a blur. They tried to move on to other topics, other segments, but everyone knew what the real story was. Everyone knew what people would be talking about. The confrontation, the anger, the moment when Joy Behar looked at one of the most famous women in the world and told her to leave. Back in the dressing room after the show, Joy sat down and let out a long breath. Her co-host came in to check on her. "That was intense," one of them said. Joy laughed, but it was a tired laugh. "That's one word for it." "Do you think you'll get backlash for this?" another asked. Joy shrugged. "Probably. Her fans are going to come after me. They're going to say I was disrespectful, that I didn't give her a fair chance. But I know what happened in there. I know I did everything I could to make that interview work. And in the end, she's the one who chose to act that way." Her co-host put a hand on her shoulder. "The tape doesn't lie. People will see what really happened." And they did. The video spread like wildfire. News outlets picked it up. Commentary shows analyzed it. Social media was divided, but one thing was clear. The majority of people who watched the full clip saw exactly what happened. They saw Joy trying to have a conversation. They saw Meghan getting defensive and aggressive. They saw the moment when things went too far. Some people defended Meghan. They said she was standing up for herself, that she was tired of being attacked, that Joy had crossed a line. But most people saw it differently. They saw someone who came into an interview with an agenda, who wasn't interested in a real conversation, who wanted to make a scene. Joy's decision to ask her to leave was seen by many as brave, as necessary, as the right thing to do. She didn't let someone walk all over her just because they were famous. She didn't back down just because it would have been easier. She stood her ground. In the days that followed, Joy didn't talk much about it publicly. She made a few comments here and there, but mostly she let the video speak for itself. She went back to work, did her job, and moved on. That's what professionals do. But that moment lived on. It became one of those cultural touchstones that people reference. It became a case study in how not to handle an interview. It became a reminder that respect is a two-way street, no matter how famous you are. The audience that was there that day never forgot it. They told their friends, their families, everyone they knew about what they witnessed. About the tension in the room. About the shock when Meghan stood up. About the collective gasp when Joy told her to leave. About the silence that followed. Television moments like that are rare. Most interviews are boring, predictable, safe. Everyone plays their role. Everyone stays in their lane, but every once in a while, something real happens. Something raw and unscripted and uncomfortable. And when it does, it reminds us why we watch. It reminds us that underneath all the polish and production, there are real people with real emotions, having real conflicts. Joy Behar had been in the business long enough to know how to handle pressure. She had been criticized before, she had been attacked before, she had dealt with difficult guests before. But this was different. This was someone with massive influence, massive reach, massive power. And Joy still said no. She still drew the line. She still put her foot down. That takes guts. That takes confidence. That takes a clear sense of your own worth and your own boundaries. Joy had all of that. And in that moment, when it mattered most, she showed it. The other co-hosts talked about it later, in private. They all agreed that they didn't know if they could have done what Joy did. It would have been so easy to just let it slide, to laugh it off, to finish the interview and deal with it behind closed doors. But Joy made a different choice. She made the hard choice. The choice that would cause controversy and criticism, but was ultimately the right one. Looking back at those 36 seconds, the moment when everything changed, it's clear what happened. Meghan made a comment that crossed a line. She questioned Joy's integrity, her professionalism, her intentions, and Joy, who had been patient up until that point, who had tried to keep things civil, decided enough was enough. That's the thing about boundaries. They only work if you enforce them. You can talk all day about what you will and won't tolerate, but if you don't back it up with action, it doesn't mean anything. Joy backed it up. She showed everyone watching that she meant what she said. The conversation between them, captured on camera for the world to see, became a masterclass in conflict. You could see Meghan getting more and more agitated. You could see Joy trying to de-escalate. You could see the moment when both of them realized this wasn't going to end well. And you could see the exact second when Joy made the decision that Meghan had to go. It wasn't a decision she made lightly. You could tell from her face, from her body language, that she knew this was big. She knew this would make headlines. She knew people would talk about it forever, but she did it anyway. Because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than avoiding controversy. The audience in that studio witnessed something extraordinary. They came expecting a normal celebrity interview, maybe a few interesting stories, maybe some light drama, maybe a funny moment or two. Instead, they got front row seats to one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. They got to see what happens when two strong personalities clash, when egos collide, when respect breaks down. And through it all, they saw Joy Behar stand firm. They saw her refuse to be bullied. They saw her maintain her dignity even when someone was trying to tear her down. They saw her do what so many people wish they could do when faced with someone who won't show them basic respect. She told that person to leave. That moment, that decision, that confrontation became bigger than just two people having an argument. It became a symbol of standing up for yourself, a symbol of not letting fame or status excuse bad behavior, a symbol of knowing your worth and defending it. The dialogue between Joy and Meghan was sharp, cutting, raw. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't rehearsed. It was two people saying exactly what they felt in the moment. And while that made for uncomfortable viewing, it also made for compelling television because it was real. In a world where so much of what we see on TV is fake or manufactured or carefully controlled, this was genuine human conflict playing out in real time. Joy's words were measured but firm. She didn't yell. She didn't lose her temper. She just stated facts and drew boundaries. Meghan's words were emotional, defensive, accusatory. She felt attacked and she lashed out. Two very different approaches to the same situation. And in the end, one approach won out over the other. The back and forth between them escalated so quickly. One minute they were having a tense but manageable conversation. The next minute they were standing up, facing, off, saying things that couldn't be taken back. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. You knew it was going to end badly, but you couldn't look away. When Meghan finally walked off that stage, her exit was dramatic but also somehow anticlimactic. Because by that point, the real moment had already happened. The real confrontation had already played out. Her leaving was just the inevitable conclusion to a situation that had spiraled out of control. Joy's handling of the situation was praised by colleagues, by other hosts, by people in the industry who understood how difficult that moment was. It's easy to judge from the outside. It's easy to say what you would have done differently. But when you're in the moment, when the cameras are rolling, when millions of people are watching, making the right call is hard. Joy made the right call. The tension in that studio was something you could almost touch. It was thick and heavy and uncomfortable. The audience felt it. The crew felt it. Everyone watching at home felt it. That kind of tension doesn't come from nothing. It comes from real conflict, real emotion, real stakes. And the stakes were high. For Joy, her reputation and her show's integrity were on the line. For Meghan, her public image and her credibility were at risk. Both of them knew that how they handled this moment would define how people saw them. Both of them chose their paths. And those paths led to a confrontation that neither of them would forget. Looking at the whole incident from start to finish, it's a story about respect, boundaries, and accountability. It's a story about what happens when someone thinks their fame gives them permission to treat others poorly. It's a story about a host who refused to be treated that way. And it's a story that will be remembered for years to come as one of the most dramatic moments in talk show history.